The campfire is a staple of scary stories that are told in the dark. All alone in the forest, anything can lurk behind the trees. Could the same be true about when you're on the computer at night? I mean, the harsh white glow of your monitor being the only light in your bedroom could make it a perfect place to have scary stories told. A video that I've been trying to make for a while has actually been about creepypastas. Um, I didn't want to just narrate one of the classics. I feel like that's been way too overdone, and I probably couldn't do it well anyway. And just going off of a really bad one wouldn't be fun either. I mean, I've already kind of done that, so not feeling it. But because of that, I've actually spent a lot of time actually trying to figure out what I wanted this video to be about. And I thought about creepypastas, as a whole, and how, they spread, thanks to the internet, through forum to forum, and a comment section to a comment section, almost instantly. And those stories, while being spread, would change. Details would evolve, and people would make new anecdotes, show totally real photos and videos they found, like this never-ending game of telephone. While creepypastas still exist and are being made, they've definitely fallen off compared to when they were in their peak, which I think was somewhere between 2009 to 2011, maybe 2012 if you're pushing it. And many of the famous ones, like Jeff the Killer and Sonic.exe, have definitely led to this more post-mortem reputation the genre has that can be described as crappypasta. Stories that are very obviously written by young children, or in the case of actual crappypastas or troll pastas, which are creepypasta but with haha these are bad put in front of it. They're intentionally made to poke fun at the original genre, like when a skeleton popped out. And being honest, I feel like that's a bit of a historical revision, because fuck, man, some of these were terrifying. Do you remember the Russian sleep experiment? That thing kept 11-year-old me up all night. Look at the guy. Look at the Russian sleep experiment guy. That was spine-chilling. But all these stories have some origin point, whether on a chant board, a forum post, or just based off of some random image floating around the web. But, over time, their origins kind of get muddled. And the stories spread and change through what can be considered kind of an oral tradition of being posted and modified all over the web. Just like how many types of folklore developed historically. Excluding the internet aspect, this is basically how, for example, stories like the Tea Kettle and Hodag developed in log camps in my home state of Wisconsin. So, if we're going to think about creepypastas as a modern form of folklore, let's try and make a definition of folklore. I mean, it's going to be extremely vague, but it's a good place to start. Folklore, or folktales, they're retailed orally. Usually you're speaking it to another person. And because of that, it's passed down from person to person. But the act of telling a folktale is a performance. This isn't just you sitting down and reading it out you're telling it to another person. You are trying to sell the story to another person. Like with a urban legend, you're intentionally trying to scare the people you have over that Bloody Mary is actually real, and if you say Bloody Mary in a mirror in a bathroom when it's dark, she's gonna come out and FNAF jump scare you. But the story isn't written by an author and is meant for mass consumption. You're not gonna see folk tales on being sold on Barnes and Noble. I mean, I guess as a compilation, but They're usually just told from person to person. They're not being sold. But the story itself is very variable. Storytellers, you can add your own spin to it. You can add stuff, you can remove stuff, you can change some details around. They're very malleable, plastic, and easily changeable. They also differ from the main ways we interact with and consume media. Most media we interact with nowadays is very static. Books, TV shows, video games, and movies are all good examples of static media. Once it's released, it will never be changed. Like this video. Once I upload it, it won't be changed. This is the final version of this video. Folktales have no definite origin, too. I mean, we know where they originated, but we don't have a author to them. We know, for example, the hodag originated in northern Wisconsin, kind of near Rhinelander, but we don't know who first told the story, and we most likely never will. That's a very common characteristic of many folktales. We have no idea who first started these stories. But since the internet isn't a real place and has large amounts of ownership just naturally embedded into it, can folktale really originate there? According to Folklore on the Internet, a vernacular expression in a digital world by Trevor Blank, the internet provides an anonymous medium for web users to quickly disseminate information, which often leads to a more authentic performance of the user's true nature. In this sense, the internet is really an ideal channel for the transmission of these narratives. Due to the anonymity and speedy efficiency in the dissemination of its ideas. So while communication through the internet is mostly text-based instead of, verbal, most text-based information is still structured more like if it was spoken. It's very casual, and people aren't really editing what they typed afterwards. It is basically the direct thoughts of the user. And creepypastas themselves are constructed in this very casual way, similar to how many tall tales, urban legends, and ghost stories are originated and how they spread during pre-internet times. However, with this rapid spread of information that the internet allows, creepypastas, they can spread from one corner of the internet to another at an extremely rapid pace. What would have taken an urban legend decades to spread creepypasta or like a copypasta or whatever can just take a week to maybe a few months to get the same level of notoriety. The rapid speed of information being spread throughout the internet, plus with its anonymity, leads to a really good medium for spreading folktales. The anonymity allows people to be more weird than they usually would because they don't have to really worry about being ostracized from their off-internet cliques, for example. But one issue does exist. While many folk tales that originated outside of the internet have their origins lost to time, we know where and who made the first version of a creepypasta. For example, we know Herobrine was first published to the V-board of 4chan in 2010. The fact that we know the origins kind of destroys the mystery that some folktales have. Like, okay, we know who started the story, but we don't know who started a real folktale. So, does this mean they're not folktales? And to that, I say, that's kind of stupid. That's kind of pointless if you're saying that a folktale has to be anonymous. Because the fact that we know where these stories originated and who originated them, that's a great starting point to see how it spread throughout the internet. And it can really be used as a good study for how folktales actually spread during the time before the internet. So I think it's actually kind of neat that we know where they started. And it's like, we don't actually know who started them because, usernames and all that lead to it being started by an anonymous person. So to that I say, who cares? Who cares that we know that? Who cares? But academic folklorists use this term known as ostension. This refers more or less to the act of performing or reenacting a folk belief or legend in real life. As I said earlier, recanting Bloody Mary in a mirror during a sleepover would be a good example of ostension of a story. Reverse ostension, more or less, is creating these folk narratives and traditions where none existed before. It involves the creation of new objects and new disconnected examples of folklore. This can be through found photos, a person's experience with a creature. And all these elements are combined to a corpus of what this new traditional narrative is. And it could, be modeled on existing folklore, but not really indebted to a specific folkloric tradition. With using Slenderman as an example, the original story kind of existed on its own, but over time, thanks to fan art, fan photos, fan video games, the traditions around Slenderman were born, and Slenderman gained its own folkloric traditions. And then it was greatly expanded upon with content such as Marble Hornets. Marble Hornets greatly expanded upon and also created new alternative versions of the original Slenderman folkloric tradition. And the same goes for the Slender video game, too. It did the same thing that Marble Hornets and countless other fan videos, fan games, fan fiction even, did to help create a new folkloric tradition. Which is how constant different versions of Bloody Mary made the Bloody Mary folkloric traditions. But those who read and participate in Slenderman may also have experiences outside of the folklore that they contribute to Slenderman. So the folklore soon escapes from just being something that's told to you to something that you actually, intentionally or not, attribute to a event that happens in real life. For example, you're walking home late at night. It's cold, it's dark, and I'm not saying Slenderman's real, or that the people who add on to the Slenderman story itself think it is either. However, the story does just tap into that real feeling. You can use Slenderman as a explanation for a feeling you have that you couldn't explain otherwise. Why else are you feeling like you're being watched? There's your answer. But with the fact that creepypastas originate on the internet, the subject greatly differs from folk tales of old. I mean, of course, tales such as, there's a killer in the woods, like Jeff the Killer, or, really, man hook, car hook, door hook, all of those fall into that, or there's a monster, like Slenderman. I think Eyeless Jack would fall into that. Yeah. Or, this science experiment has gone horribly wrong, like in my hated Russian sleep experiment. However, since it's on the internet, it changes. Instead, it goes into, this emailed image that was sent to me is fucking haunted. Because a lot of creepypastas feature haunted, cursed, or otherwise corrupted technology. As stated earlier, it could be a cursed image, or, this show or video game is haunted, or made by killers, or used by killers. It's video game, but something about it is fucked up, basically. Like, with any EXE, I think Andy Apple, and Candle Cove. This is basically, because of how they're told, you're being told the story alone at, presumably night, all but in your room, where the only light shining onto you is from your computer monitor. It's just like how stories about ghost ships or sea monsters would be told if you're on a boat, or stories of monsters in the woods would be told while you're outside camping with friends. Just the setting of where the story is being told influences what story is being told. And because many of these feature corrupted children's media, a lot of them, are using someone's own nostalgia to help scare them, basically. Seeing something you held so fondly, something that brought you a lot of joy in your childhood, being basically corrupted beyond recognition, can be really shocking to someone. Like, little Bill fucking killed people? No! No! He wouldn't do that. And also, because, let's be honest, a lot of the people who were reading creepypastas were children. So seeing a lot of media that you would consume as a child turning out to be this extremely haunted, fucked up shit would scare you. Like a kid reading Herobrine would soon go, Herobrine actually real? No, he's in my world. And they would be so paranoid of Herobrine actually being real and being in their world that when their friend joins their server and changes his skin to Herobrine and also makes that Herobrine summoner with the gold, the netherrack, and the redstone torches, he would fucking cry. Yeah, I still remember that. I remember what you did, and I don't appreciate it. I don't appreciate it.
Okay, let's use a diamond.
Or like, in Sonic.exe, where a guy gets a Sonic game sent to him, but it's cursed. And Sonic fucking kills all the Sonic characters, and then iconically says, I am God. While the main character can't turn the computer off, because Sonic controls the computer now. And then he turns around, and there's like a Tails plushie on his bed, which leads to Sonic killing him, or cursing him, or making him go insane, depending on the version you heard. And that leads to kids being like, "Oh, we gotta find the cursed game," which leads to the expansion of that extension of the narrative. Because now people are just adding on to it, mainly children, because children love creepypastas, as we know. Yeah, that shit would be scary if you were 11 and reading it past your bedtime. But when you venture out into the woods at night, there still could be monsters out there. Hoop snakes could, for all we know, actually be rolling around the St. Croix River. And every noise you hear in the woods could be that monster your friends told you about when they were sharing that scary story at the campfire last night. The internet is no different in this regard. That image you saw earlier, it could have been cursed. Those cursed versions of Mario and Sonic could really be out there. Herobrine could be chilling in your Minecraft world while you're just unaware of it until you actually summon him. And that Lavender Town audio you listened to earlier, that could have been the right frequency to make you go insane. And Slenderman could just be hiding in the woods. Folktales and urban legends have always existed and have adapted to new mediums throughout history. The rise of the internet is no different in this regard. And folklore adapted to this new change. And that change itself led us to the creepypasta, which continues to scare us throughout the web.